She had told her son no, and with that single word he disappeared from her life forever. 10 years of suffocating silence, 10 years of hollow, echoing guilt. Then, one stormy Tuesday night, just as she was locking up the library, a small boy walked out of the rain and changed everything. He was clutching a faded copy of a book she had given her son 20 years ago. The boy looked up, his eyes a mirror of the ones that haunted her dreams, and said, "My mother is gone. She told me to find you. She said you are my grandmother."
My name is Eleanor Vance, and for 43 years I have been the head librarian of the Cedar Falls Public Library. At 69, my life is measured in the rustle of turning pages and the quiet scent of old paper. This library is not just my job, it is my home, my penance, and my fortress. The heavy oak doors and stained glass windows hold the only history I have left. The town of Cedar Falls, Washington, tucked away in the misty fog of the Cascades, has always seen me as a pillar of the community. They do not know about the night my son Thomas begged me for his inheritance, or the way I looked at him with such disappointment. He had asked for $50,000. He was always full of grand ideas that evaporated like the morning fog, and I saw this as just another one. I saw weakness. I told him no. I told him he was irresponsible, that he was wasting his life waiting for a handout. He stared at me, his face pale, and the words he spoke next were the last I ever heard from him. "You don't understand, Mom. This isn't for me. Please." I refused. He walked out of my house and vanished. That was 10 years, 4 months, and 12 days ago. And now, this child, this boy named Leo, stood dripping rainwater onto the polished herringbone floors of the library foyer. He couldn't be more than 9 years old, small for his age, with that same dark, unruly hair and the same intelligent, solemn grey eyes. My son's eyes. "Come in, child," I managed to say, my voice sounding distant. "You're soaked to the bone. Where is your mother now?" He followed me into my small office, accepting a dry towel I kept for emergencies. He wrapped it around his thin shoulders. "She's gone," he whispered, his voice catching. "She got sick. The doctor said it was her lungs. Before she went to the hospital for the last time, she gave me a bus ticket and this address. She made me memorize your name, Eleanor Vance." We tell stories here about the moments that define us, the secrets families keep, and the strength we find in the darkest of times. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, I hope you will take a moment to subscribe and join our community. I made the boy some hot cocoa from the kettle I kept in the office. He held the warm mug in both hands, his shivering finally starting to ease. "My name is Leo. My mother's name was Clara." He looked down into the mug. "She said my father, Thomas, he died 2 years ago. She said he loved you very much." The room tilted, dead. For 2 years, I had spent a decade oscillating between anger at his abandonment and a desperate, knowing fear that he was hurt. Now I had my answer. The anger felt so foolish, so pointless. "He never told me," I whispered, more to myself than to the boy. "He never told me about you, or your mother." "He wanted to," Leo said quietly, as if reading my mind. "Mom said he was just scared. He was scared you wouldn't forgive him." "Forgive him for what?" Leo reached into his worn backpack and pulled out a waterproof plastic envelope. Inside was a thick, folded letter. "My mom wrote this for you. She said it would explain everything. She said you had to read it before you believed me." My hands trembled as I took it. The handwriting was neat, feminine, but stained with what looked like tear marks. The letter began, "Dear Mrs. Vance, I am writing this because I know I do not have much time left. My name is Clara, and I was your son's wife. Our son, Leo, is the greatest gift Thomas ever gave me. The second greatest gift was the truth he finally told me before he passed away. I am sending Leo to you because you are the only family he has left, and because you are the only one who can finish what Thomas started." My breath caught. Finish what? "You believe Thomas left because you refused to give him money for a foolish investment. That is not what happened. 10 years ago, Thomas got involved in high-stakes poker games. He wasn't a gambler, not really, but he was desperate to prove himself to you, to show you he could be successful on his own. He fell in with the wrong people. He lost money he did not have. The man who ran the games was named Marcus Thorne." I knew that name. Everyone in Cedar Falls knew Marcus Thorne. He was a wealthy, ruthless developer who had been buying up historic properties all over town, replacing them with steel and glass condominiums. He was polished, dangerous, and carried the air of a man who had never been told no.
The letter continued. Thomas owed Marcus Thorne $50,000. When he couldn't pay, Thorne didn't threaten Thomas. He threatened you. He knew Thomas's only weakness was his mother. Thorne told Thomas he would arrange for an electrical fire at the Cedar Falls Public Library, and he would make sure you were inside working late when it happened. The money Thomas begged you for wasn't for him. It was to save your life. When you refused, believing he was being irresponsible, he was so broken that he couldn't bring himself to tell you the truth. He couldn't bear the thought of you knowing you were in danger, or that he had been the one to cause it. So he ran. He disappeared to draw Thorne's attention away from you. He spent the rest of his life looking over his shoulder.
I dropped the letter. The cocoa mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the floor. But I didn't notice. The guilt was a physical weight, pressing the air from my lungs. I had called him weak. I had called him a failure. And all along, my son, my only child, had sacrificed his entire life, his family, his home, all to protect me. And I had been sitting here, safe in my library, judging him for it. Leo rushed to my side. "Are you okay, Grandma?" I pulled him into my arms. The first time I had held anyone in a decade. I buried my face in his damp hair, and for the first time since Thomas left, I wept. I wept for my son's honor, for my own terrible, blind pride, and for the 10 stolen years we could never get back. After a long time, I pulled back, my mind racing. "Leo," I said, my voice shaky but firm. "This man, Marcus Thorne, your mother's letter, it said I had to finish what Thomas started. What did she mean?"
Leo's expression turned serious. My father was an accountant before he met Mom. When he was trying to pay Mr. Thorne back before he ran, he worked in his back office. He said Mr. Thorne's development company was a lie. It was how he hid all the money from his other businesses. He kept a record, I whispered, the realization dawning. Leo nodded. Dad kept a secret ledger. It shows everything. All the names, all the dates, all the money he was laundering. Mom said it was his insurance policy. She said it was the one thing that could stop Mr. Thorne for good. "Where is it, Leo? Where is this ledger?" Mom said Dad hid it before he left town. He hid it in the one place he knew Mr. Thorne would never look, and the one place he knew you would always protect. "Here?" I looked around my office, at the towering shelves of books. "It's here, in the library."
The storm outside seemed to fade, replaced by a new, more dangerous storm building inside those library walls. This changed everything. Marcus Thorne had been trying to buy the library building for the past 3 years. The town council was close to giving in, arguing the historic building was too expensive to maintain. All this time, I thought he wanted it for the location. Now I knew the truth. He wanted it to destroy the evidence my son had left behind. I took Leo home to my small house behind the library. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the small boy sleep in Thomas's old bed, a perfect stranger who carried my son's blood and his last, desperate secret. Clara's letter had given me back my son's memory, but it had also handed me a weapon.
The next morning, I saw him, Marcus Thorne. He was standing across the street from the library, ostensibly looking at the property, but his eyes were fixed on the diner where I was buying breakfast for Leo. He saw the boy. I saw the moment of recognition, the slight narrowing of his eyes. He didn't know who Leo was, not yet, but he saw the resemblance. He saw a ghost. That afternoon, he came into the library. Marcus Thorne had never set foot in the library before. He moved with a predatory grace, his expansive suit a dark stain against the warm wood of the reading room. "Mrs. Vance," he said, his voice smooth as polished stone. "A pleasure to finally see the inside of this magnificent old place. It has such wonderful bones. It's a shame it's fallen into such disrepair." "It is not for sale, Mr. Thorne," I said, my hand steady on the counter. Everything is for sale, Eleanor. It's just a matter of finding the right price.
His gaze drifted past me toward my office where Leo was quietly reading. "I see you have a visitor. Family?" "My grandson," I said, the word feeling both new and ancient. Thorne's smile was thin, cold. Grandson. How lovely. I wasn't aware Thomas had a family. My blood ran cold. He had used my son's name. It was a test, a threat. Thomas passed away, I said, keeping my voice level. A tragedy, Thorne said, without a trace of sympathy. He was a complicated young man. Owed a lot of people money, I recall. It's a blessing he didn't leave any of that trouble behind for you. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. Or did he? I stared back at him, the fear eclipsed by a sudden burning anger. The anger of a mother who had failed her son once and would not fail his child. The library is not for sale, Mr. Thorne. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm very busy. His eyes hardened. A building this old, he mused, tapping a wooden support pillar. All this dry paper. It would be a catastrophe if a fire ever broke out. You should be careful, Eleanor. You're getting older. An old woman and a young boy. It would be a terrible loss for the community. He left. The threat hung in the air like smoke. He knew. He didn't know about the ledger, but he knew Leo's arrival meant trouble. He was tying up loose ends. That night, Leo and I went back to the library after it was closed. Where, Leo? Where did your father hide it? Mom said he loved the adventure stories. She said he always hid things in the one place no one ever looked, inside another story. We went to the archives, the dark, musty basement level where the oldest, rarest books were kept. We passed rows of history, of science. He told Mom it was his white whale, Leo said.
I stopped. I knew exactly where it was. On the top shelf of the American Classics section was an oversized, leather-bound first edition of Moby Dick. It was Thomas's favorite. He used to say it was about a man chasing something that could never be caught. I climbed the rolling ladder. The book was heavy, coated in dust. I brought it down to the table and opened the cover. The first 100 pages were normal, and then I saw it. The center of the book had been meticulously hollowed out. Resting inside was a small, black, hard-bound ledger. My son's neat, precise handwriting filled every page. It was all there. Dates, offshore account numbers, shell corporations, and a detailed record of the money laundering operation, all tied directly to Thorne and Associates. Thomas hadn't just run. He had built the cage that would one day hold his monster. He did it, Leo, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. He really did it. A sound from the floor above made us freeze. A heavy footstep, then another. Someone's here, Leo whispered, grabbing my hand. I looked at the ledger, then at the single-service elevator at the far end of the archive. Thorne must have had us followed. He had come back to finish what he started. Quickly, I said, tucking the ledger into the waistband of my skirt, covered by my cardigan. We are not going to the elevator. We are going to the old ventilation shaft. I grabbed Leo's hand and we moved silently through the towering shafts. Another sound echoed, closer this time. The grate to the old shaft was behind a row of Civil War histories. I pulled it open. Go, Leo, climb up. It leads to the alley behind the building. Don't stop for anything. Run to the diner and call Sheriff Miller. Tell him to come to the library. I'm not leaving you, he said, his face pale but set with that same stubborn look I remembered from Thomas. You must. This, I tapped the ledger, is useless if we are both trapped down here. Your father trusted me to protect this. Now I am trusting you to protect us. Go, run. He hesitated, then squeezed my hand and scrambled into the darkness of the shaft. I turned back toward the main archive room just as the elevator doors opened. Marcus Thorne stepped out, flanked by two large men I didn't recognize. Eleanor, he sighed, straightening his tie. You are making this so much more difficult than it needs to be. The boy? He's gone. That's a shame. I was hoping to resolve this quietly. He walked toward the classic section, his eyes scanning the shelves. He knew. He must have known about the book. He went straight to Moby Dick and snatched it from the shelf. He ripped it open. His face contorted in rage when he saw it was empty. He threw the priceless book to the floor. Where is it? The ledger. Where is it? It's safe, I said, my voice shaking but my spine rigid. Safe from you. Do you have any idea what you are holding? He hissed. That is my life's work, my legacy. It is a record of your crimes. It is the proof of what you did to my son. He took a step toward me. Your son was a pathetic gambler who couldn't pay his debts.
He got what he deserved. He was a hero, I said, my voice rising. He was a better man than you will ever be, and he is going to be the one who destroys you. Thorn raised his hand to strike me. I wouldn't do that, Marcus. A new voice echoed through the archive. Standing at the bottom of the main stairs was Arthur Hendricks, our old county sheriff, who was supposed to be retired and fishing. He was holding a very steady shotgun. Arthur, Thorn sneered, lowering his hand. You're retired. This is not your jurisdiction. You're trespassing. I'm just a concerned citizen, Arthur said, walking slowly into the room. And I'm here with a friend. Sheriff Miller and 2 deputies appeared behind him, their service weapons drawn. Marcus Thorn, Sheriff Miller said, his voice booming in the enclosed space. You are under arrest for breaking and entering and conspiracy. Conspiracy? Thorn laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. You have no proof of anything. We do now, I said. I pulled the black ledger from my waistband and held it up. Thorn's face went slack. He looked from the book to the deputies, and for the first time I saw the real man beneath the expensive suit. He was small and he was terrified. He lunged for me, a desperate final attempt to get the book. Arthur didn't even flinch. He simply stepped in front of me, blocking Thorn's path with the barrel of his gun. It's over, Marcus. It's been over for 10 years. You just didn't know it. Thorn and his men were taken away in handcuffs. I sat down on the archive steps, the adrenaline leaving me so weak I could barely stand. Leo came running back in, followed by more officers. He rushed to my side. You did it, Grandma. You got him. I held him close, the small, solid weight of him grounding me. No, sweetheart, I said, looking at the ledger in my hands. Your father did it. We just finished the story. The ledger was the key. It unlocked a massive federal investigation into Marcus Thorn's entire operation. He wasn't just laundering money. He was involved in extortion and fraud across 3 states. The library was saved. The town council, horrified, voted unanimously to declare it a permanent historical landmark. But more than that, my son's name was cleared. Arthur, it turned out, had always suspected Thorn and Thomas's disappearance. He had been quietly collecting evidence for a decade, waiting for the one piece he was missing. The story came out, and the town saw Thomas not as the irresponsible boy who ran away, but as the man who had saved the town's library and his mother's life. My life is quiet again, but it is no longer empty. The library is still filled with the scent of old paper, but now it's also filled with the sound of Leo practicing his piano in the afternoon, or the smell of the cookies we bake in my small kitchen at home. The guilt I carried for 10 years has finally been replaced by a fierce, quiet pride. My son Thomas spent his last years in hiding, but he left behind a legacy. He left a son who has his father's courage and his grandmother's stubbornness. And he left a story, hidden on a dusty shelf, but proved that even after we are gone, our honor and our love can still find a way to bring the truth to light. Thank you for listening.